Okay, students, a very warm good afternoon. So, we start discussing another question paper. This time I will be doing prose. So, starting with answer the following in a word, a phrase, or a sentence each, okay? Where did the man have his little hut? In the gentleman of the jungle. So the answer is at the edge of the forest. Okay, so you can either answer it in a sentence, the man had his little hut at the edge of the forest, or even at the edge of the forest will be fine. Okay, the next question is the school boy going to school is a dash experience for the speaker. Yes, students, you can there are three options given to us: happy, joyous, and despairing. Despair means to feel sad, uh, feeling of regret, remorse is despair, and sadness. Now definitely students, even if you're not sure of the meaning of the word despair, we know for sure the schoolboy going to school is not happy, nor does he feel joyous about it. So definitely the answer is despairing. Next one, how much money did the narrator save as his life saving in Oru Manusha? It's 14 rupees. Next one, name the illiterate woman who is described as a crusading educationalist in Babar Ali. It is Tulu Rani Hazra. Next one, who believes that education is man's true religion? It is Nasiruddin Sheikh. The next one, how many gods are there sheltering inside the sacred cow in If I Was a Tree? It was 300. The answer is 300,000. Mara in Watchman of the Lake is called a dash by the village headman. Okay, so what does a village headman refer to him? Sage. Definitely, student, a sage is someone like a rishi, a muni, someone meditating, or someone, a person with deep knowledge is a sage. So definitely the headman does not refer to Mara as a sage. Then lunatic, that is the second option given to us. Lunatic means a madman, and the third one is godman. Godmen are like, what you call swamis. You have no people worshipping them, people believing that they are the incarnation of God on this earth, and they have many followers, people paying homage to them. So definitely students, sage and godmen are positive words, and we know the headman did not have a very respectful attitude towards Mara, and yes, he referred to him as a lunatic, that means a mad person. According to Mara, the watchman of the lake, when did Hanuman come in search of Sanjeevani? That means students, why did he need the Sanjeevani? Okay, because to revive, we know Lakshmana, who was on the brink of death, who was on the verge of death. Next one, whom do you in Kick Me When You Were Drunk in The Farmer's Wife refer to? So we know students, when the farmer's wife says, you kicked me when you were drunk, who was that person kicking her? It was her husband, the way he used to abuse her, the physical abuse, okay? So that's why kicking you. So you refers to the farmer. Next one, who stuck to you, who sticks to you like a burr in the speaker, to the speaker in an old woman? So like a burr, we know students, a thorny fruit, and when he says sticking and sticking like a burr, a burr is of fruit which is of no use, and people don't collect it or take it to their houses or use it for any purpose. So but it still sticks to you. That means it comes along, it sticks to you without your permission, without your knowledge, or without your liking. So that is why the old woman is someone like that. As the poet says, that she sticks to you like a bird. She's like that irritating thorny fruit which just sticks to your clothes, and then when you go, you have to just pluck them out. So it's like a nuisance. So that's why he's referring to the old woman as a bird. Next one, students. How old was Nicole according to narrator in Two Gentlemen of Verona? I believe Nicole was 14. Yes, next one. Two Gentlemen of Lucia is the name of, in Two Gentlemen of Verona, the question is, Lucia is the name of the little boy's mother, sister, or nurse. Who is Lucia? Their sister, okay? Because we know students at one point, we know the sister's name because, the nurse, when the narrator enters the place and nurse says, come, I'll introduce you, and Lucia will be very happy to meet you. That means Nicole and Jacob, their older sister's name was Lucia. Next one, answer the 8. We come to the essay type question, students. How did the elephant occupy the man's hut and gentleman of jungle? We know, students, we start by writing a brief introduction to the author, and then students, you can speak about, it's about speaking about the imperial rule and how they exploited the poor, illiterate Kikuyu tribes, and then you can go directly to, it's very important to mention, students, that the story, it's a fable and it's a satire, okay, on imperialism and exploitation. These 2 points have to come in your answer, okay. That is, you have to write that the story is a satire and it's a fable. S-A-T-I-R-E, satire, and it's a fable. Fable where you have animals behaving like human beings, okay. So you can also elaborate, students. It speaks about the condition of poor Kikuyu tribes who were exploited by the imperials, that is the Britishers. And then, students, we know what happened, that once it was raining very heavily and an elephant sought shelter from a man, and the man very generously allowed him to put his trunk, but gradually the elephant occupied the entire hut and he threw the man out. And you know how he twisted the story and said that he occupied the hut in order to help the man. So in this way, students, and he also claimed that his skin was delicate, so he is the one who needs the shelter more. So all those points will come in your answer. Next one, comment on how the speaker feels in the schoolboy, in schoolboy. Yeah, you can see, students, the schoolboy is speaking about the monotonous. Monotonous means something that is made boring by repetition. So he speaks about the monotony of school, the despair, the sadness that he experiences in school. He speaks about anxiety, the fear that he experiences in school. He speaks about, that he's forced to do something which he does not like to do. Like he says, he cannot take delight in his books. He would rather spend time with nature, but he's forced. And of course, students, he speaks about the authoritarian nature of school, the discipline, the strictness, and how he despairs, how it's very, very sad. So all that, the initial 4 stanzas of the poem will come in that answer, okay? That means in your own words, the sadness, the boredom, the anxiety, yes, the worry, the authoritarian nature of school, the stringent rules and norms that he has to follow, the lack of freedom, yes, to do what one likes to do the most, forcing someone to do. He cannot take delight in books, so they rob him of the joy of his life. They rob him of the happiness of life. In fact, getting up in the morning is also now a painful experience, because he knows after he gets up, he will be forced to go to school. Next one, give an account of the narrator's routine in Oru Manusha. We know, students, that he used to get up in the morning, he used to not get up in the morning, rather he used to get up in the evening, because we are told he used to sleep most of the day in order to save money, and then he would get up in the evening, complete his household chores, go to a restaurant and have a single meal of the day, and then go to do his job. You can also tell what his job was about. His job entailed teaching migrant laborers to write their address in English. So he would do his job, and after that he would come home and sleep. So you can also say that he had this rather tough kind of a routine with no respite or no entertainment in his life, because he was trying his best to save money. He would earn very little, and in that also he was trying to save as much as he could. Next one, the next question says, describe the school Babar Ali runs for underprivileged. Yes, students, you can say, here you can speak about it was a school under the open sky in his backyard. You can say the benches, how they were rickety, in a very bad state, and how Babar Ali taught the students there what he had learned in school, and the education was free. And of course, students, who are the teachers of the school? The high school student volunteers. Okay, they did not have qualified teachers. Students who had studied in that school had come back to give what they had received. They had come back to give the learning, the knowledge that they had acquired from the school. And of course, students, although it is a school run in his backyard, you can see all the features of a bigger school, larger school is there, and they also have the midday meal schemes. So all that can come in your answer. Then students, the next one, what reason does a speaker put forward for choosing to become a tree in If I Was a Tree? Here also, students, the word satire is very important. Satire means indirect criticism. Without directly using words like downtrodden, upper caste, lower caste, or such words, we can very well understand what the speaker is trying to say and why does he prefer to the life of a tree. So he speaks about the privileges that nature enjoys, how Mother Earth treats all its creations equally without any discrimination. So that is brought out in the poem. So that is the reason he wants to be a tree. That means being a human being, and being a human being born in the so-called lower caste, or the caste of untouchables, the insult, the humiliation, the hardness of life that he has to undergo. So when he looks at nature, he feels, the elements of nature are far more fortunate, because this kind of discrimination does not exist there. Then going further, students, why does Mara try to meet the king and watchman of the lake? Here, students, we know that he claims that the goddess had come in his dream, and she had asked him to convey this message to the king that, ask king to build a tank across the lake. Here it's very important, students, where you can speak about Mara's determination to convey the dream to the king despite so many hurdles in his ways, and so many people not wanting him to meet the king, but still he meets the king and conveys the message. So that shows his determination. And even after conveying the message, we see, students, he tells the king that if you want, now you can crush me under the foot of an elephant. I have done my job. So the determination and the dedication in this man, and we believe that is what appealed most to the king. And the king immediately believed him, and he says, yes, I can see what you're saying. You are making a very good point there, and I will definitely implement it. And that's why, students, even later the king made him the watchman of the lake. So we know why Mara wanted. If anybody else in Mara's place would have been like, when these people are not allowing me to meet the king, why should I take the trouble, But no, students, you can see his determination and dedication even there. Then bring out Mara's sacrifice in Watchman of the Lake. Yes, students, in one line you can first state about what kind of a watchman he was. He was very sincere. He did his job very responsibly, and how he protected the sanctity of the lake. Not only that, students, when it was according to the need of the hour, if somebody came to ask Mara for some favor, he was more than willing to do it. Like if someone needed water, he was not bossy, or he was not partial, right? So that is how all the qualities we see: impartial, his large-heartedness, his the sincerity with which he did his job, okay, and how he tried to protect the sanctity of the lake. And then the part, his sacrifice, that means how he sacrificed his lake, his life for the people of the village. That means we know the story, students, how he told the goddess that you must flood the village, flood the kingdom only after I convey the message to the king, and when you see me returning, then you can flood the kingdom. So he tells the king, make it impossible for me to return. So the river, the goddess of the lake does not flood the kingdom. So in this way, students, Mara has to be put to death. Mara is executed, but you can see, students, this is the sacrifice. He lays down his life for the people of the kingdom. Okay, so that is truly his great sacrifice. Okay, then explain the plight of the speaker after her husband's death in Farmer's Wife. So you can see, students, that stated that she will now have to bend her head and stretch her hand, students. Now she will have to bear all the humiliations, all those things the farmers wanted to escape. The very reason why he ended his life, because he could not bear the bitter humiliation. He could not stretch his hand, means he could not ask anybody for help. But now the farmer's wife will have to swallow that bitter humiliation. Now she will have to struggle. Moreover, it's not just about her, they have 4 children. So she now cannot evade their responsibility. She's not the kind who will evade that responsibility. So you can speak about that, students. And moreover, in that dire poverty, when life is a struggle, and you can say the children apparently are small. So the breadwinner of the house is no more, but yet, students, the farmer's wife, the determination with which she says that I will live because I believe that true courage lies in facing the problems of life, and I'll also bring my children to become bold and courageous and face the problems of life and not beat a hasty retreat like my husband, the farmer, did. So you can speak about her stage, students, that firstly, she will have to bear the humiliation, she will have to look after herself and her 4 children. Yes, and of course they are already living in dire poverty. Hope is something something very far. Okay, their dignity has hit the dust. They don't have any respect. But despite that, she says that I will try to find the solutions to the problems and also teach my children to face the battle of life with a clenched fist. Okay. Then next one. Next question, how is dramatic transformation in the speaker's attitude brought out in an old woman? Not dramatic in the sense, students, the word they suggest something that happens quite suddenly, quite unexpectedly. Now, as you can see, students, the two contrast attitude. In the beginning, the speaker says, she was like a bird, she was sticking to me, and she was an old woman, she doesn't seem to understand that I don't want to avail her service. But when she utters these words, what else can an old woman do in a place as wretched as this? So from there, suddenly there is a 360-degree turn. That means from an attitude of disrespect, the poet starts respecting the old woman. He feels she's the superior one. And even his attitude, that means he feels that serving fellow human being, wouldn't that be a bigger service to God? And the dignity and the self-respect. Earlier, students, the poet does not seem to have any respect for her. He's ignoring her. He doesn't even want to look at her. But now he feels she is someone who deserves all the respect, because despite struggling so much in life, she stands tall, she stands strong. Okay, so that is, you can explain the two aspects of the poem. Now, what role did the little boy play during the resistance movements in Two Gentlemen of Verona? Yes, students, resistance movement means when Italy was fighting for its freedom. You know, students, the Germans had established their rule in Italy, and they were very tough, very hard-hearted, and they kind of persecuted the Italians. So the Italians were fighting for their freedom, and that is called as the resistance movement. And the boys were so small, so we know, students, how they helped in their own way. They were helpful in communicating, that is conveying the messages to the guards, to the soldiers. And how they would do that? They would hide those bits of papers in their shoe, and they would run through those hills and valleys. They were very familiar with that place. So that was also an advantage. Their small size was an advantage. Okay, so all that. But of course, students, if we know that if they were seen or noticed by the German army people, they would be shot dead. So they were taking their life for it, okay, at that young, tender age. So that is why we can see, students, how they helped. They were not like in the battlefield, with the arms and all fighting, but they were doing a very important, a crucial kind of a job. It means carrying the messages, transporting the messages, okay. And as you all know, students, they are just like what although they were young and they were doing all the work an adult can do. Even at that time, they were so small, but they were doing probably everything that an adult can do, and probably doing it even better. So that is what it's telling us. Then the next question, student, answer in about 200 words. The Gentleman of the Jungle is a story of exploitation and resistance. Explain. Yes, students, as you know, 6 marks question. Here you will again start by explaining about the author. You will again say it's a, in these questions also it's very, very important to say that it is a fable, it is a satire, and it is speaking about especially how the Kikuyu tribes, how they fought for their freedom, yes, and liberated themselves against the imperial powers, how they were forced to take recourse to violence because the imperial powers, they were using their illiteracy and they were exploiting it and they were using it to their advantage. So that you can state, and then you can students, you can speak about the story, how you can say the man stands for the Kikuyu tribes and the animals stand for the imperial powers, and you can know, students, the teeth and claws of the animals stand for the arms that they used. Not that they had the superior kind of arms which they used to frighten the tribes and kind of threatened them or held them at a ransom through it. So that can be brought out. And of course, students, man initially he was a law-abiding citizen. Whatever the commission, whatever their verdict, he followed it. Yes, he followed it very judiciously. But then later, when he realized that every time the same kind of injustice is happening, then he decided to take the law into his hands, and finally he burned down all the huts along with the animals. Okay, so it's a story of exploitation, resistance. That means, students, the story is telling us that sometimes there is a limit to man's patience and resilience. Initially, if someone exploits us or harasses us, we know that we are not supposed to take the law into our hands. There are forces and organizations to solve these kind of problems. But the people who are given the job of doing justice, if they are partial, okay, if they are biased, and every time we have to bear injustice, then we lose our patience, and that is the time people are forced to take the law into their hands. Okay, because the people who are entitled to do their work, that work, did not do it properly, did not implement it properly. So the result was the lay person lost all his faith in the law givers and the law of the land. Therefore, they were forced to take the law into their hands. Okay. Then Mara's sacrifice in the watchman of the lake makes us think of the sacrifice we need to make in order to save the water bodies. The students, as I told you, the same answer that when he became the watchman of the lake. Of course, he does not speak of things like ecology and cycles and how, but he is saying that we need to protect the sanctity of the lake. But indirectly, he is telling us students that the lesson is telling us that if we kill the smaller bodies, tomorrow our own existence will be under threat. So in an indirect way. So here you can see, students, how Mara does not allow fishing, he does not allow hunting, or he says even if the biggest wild animal comes there, you're not supposed to kill it, because that no bloodshed is allowed, because the lake belonged to the goddess, okay, and everybody has a right over it. So this is that. So you can speak about Mara as a watchman, how he protected the sanctity of the lake, and in a way, also giving us a bigger lesson that we need to kind of protect the water bodies. Okay, we need to save the water bodies. Okay, the farmer's wife shows the strength of Indian women in the struggle for life. Yes, students, if you read the entire poem in the line, in a different light, you will see it is a kind of a comparison between two individuals. One is a typical Indian man, rustic Indian man, and of course, students, another is an Indian woman, okay, who bears all kinds of physical and mental torture in the hands of a husband, and probably all that for the sake of a family. And later, when the husband commits suicide, it's also telling us about farmer's suicide. Yes, it is a tragic thing, but suicide is not something that we should glorify. She's telling us that farmers who commit suicide, they don't deserve our sympathy, because that is life. Yes, problems come in life. Sometimes a problem can be very major ones, uh, but still we need to ask the question why and how and try to find a solution. Okay, and of course, students, and then speaking about her role, that means how now she will take on, being a single parent, she will take the dual responsibility of not only fending for her children, but at the same time, students, making them mentally very strong to face the problem of her life. Today they are her children, tomorrow they will be some other woman's husband, and probably they will also be father. So probably she does not want history to repeat itself. Yes, and that is why she says that now I have this responsibility. It's not just about bringing up my children, not just making them physically strong. At the same time, I have to make them mentally strong. They cannot be like their father, who, when problems cropped in his life, he took the easy way out. Yes, he escaped all the problems by committing suicide. I will teach my children to fight in the battle of life. Okay, and yes, students, she is a representative of many women of our country and how they lead their life, um, you know, without any respite. That means even when the husband is there, she suffered, although in a different way, and even after the demise of her husband, she continues to suffer. But her battle in life also continues. She is not someone who gives up. She is not someone who ends her life. Okay, students, thank you. Thank you. That's all.